Okay, in this lesson we're going to talk about finding the mean or the average of a data set, and then we'll also be looking at a new term called outliers, which will affect the mean in some way or another, but we'll look into that when we start talking about those. First thing we need to do is fill in our definition of the word mean for pre-algebra terms, and I will type that in and we can fill that in the blank on your notes. Okay, the definition of the word mean is the sum of the data divided by the number of data items. So you're going to add up all the data and then divide it by how many that you have. Okay, so here's an example. We're going to go ahead and add up these four numbers and see what the total is. And the total is going to be 896. So when we're working with mean and outliers, we can go ahead and use calculators for this, because now I am going to divide this number by 4 because I have 4 data items in my data set. So when I divide this by 4, I'm going to get that the mean equals 224. Okay. We can also use the mean to find out other information. We have a little word problem on our notes. According to a study, the mean number of hours per night that a teen sleeps is 8.8 hours. And if I wanted to find out how many hours in a week this would be, well, how many days in a week? There are 7 days in a week. So if I take 8.8 times 7, that's going to give me the number of hours in a week that a teenager should sleep. And that's going to come out to 61.6 hours. The other term that we're going to look at in this video is called an outlier. And I'm going to go ahead and type that definition in, and you can go ahead and fill that in on your notes. Okay, so the definition of an outlier is a data item that is much higher or much lower than the other items in that set. Okay, so we're looking for something that's really high, higher than the other data items, or really lower than the other data items. And so we're going to go ahead and do an example for that. Okay, so when we're working with data items, a lot of times it's much easier for us to see some of the things that are going on with the data set if we put that data set in numerical order. And we're going to go ahead and put this data set in numerical order from least to greatest. And I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to mark them off as I do them. I have a 5, and I have another 5, and a 6, and an 8, and a 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 26. So now I'm going to look at my data, and I'm going to say, oh, 5 and 6 and 8 and 9, these are all pretty close together. So as I'm going up through my numerical order, we're all staying pretty close together until I get past 13, and then all of a sudden I have this 26 that's sticking out. Okay? Most of the other data items are like 1 or 2 spaces apart as we increase in numerical order, and then this one is 13 spaces away. So this would be my outlier. Okay? It's much higher than the other data in this data set. Well, one of the reasons why we're talking about outliers with means is that an outlier will affect the mean. Okay? So if an outlier is lower than the rest of the data, it's going to lower the mean. Okay? It's going to bring that mean down. If the outlier is much higher than the rest of the data, it will go ahead and raise the mean. Okay? So it's kind of like a number that artificially inflates or deflates your data. Okay, so here are your got it problems. In the first one, I've given you a data set that I want you to find the mean. In the second one, I have a data set that I want you to find the outlier, okay? And put these in numerical order. And then in number 3, I want you to tell me by looking at your notes, how is that outlier going to affect the mean in problem number 2? Okay? Go back and look at your notes that we just took. If an outlier is lower than the rest of the data, it's going to bring the mean down. If an outlier is higher than the rest of the data, then it's going to raise that mean up. Okay? So go back and look at those. Use your calculators for the mean. It's not that big a deal. It's easier for us to use those, and I don't mind. So we'll go ahead and take a look at these problems tomorrow.